that, I'll just give you a high level what we are gonna do in this session. So this session is not too much technical. We would say that this would be more like a scratch where we can see the foundation about Amazon Web Services. Uh, and before that, we would be seeing some cloud computing stuffs. What is cloud computing? And we will be having a slide around the history of cloud computing, then different kind of service models. Those things would be covering, and then we will jump to Amazon specific stuffs. What Amazon is, what is their history, and what all products, I would say more like services they provided as a solution. If we have time, I would be walk through architecture of which is solution provided by Amazon for IoT object. It's not a demo. It would be more like a walkthrough of the architecture, the solution architecture, and in that architecture we would be walk through about the services is inside that solution. So first thing first, so it's about me. I already Rajdeep sir mentioned about me. So Vashu, by the way, Vashu is my home name, my pet name. Officially, you can call me Vikrant, and this is me. On you can connect me on LinkedIn. I've been working from 7+ years in IT industry, and I have been working from past 4 years on AWS and working as a DevOps engineer, working on Kubernetes, cloud, containerized things, try to resolving solutions, providing solutions, design on cloud. Uh, that's about me. Let's jump to next slide. Okay. So before we begin to the technical stuffs, we would be set some pitch, or I would say that set some kind of context. So and then we can drive this session. So this slide is more about our evolution. And first thing first, when we seeing this slide, even when I saw this picture, I thought that it's more like we took million of years, from monkeys to become a smart man, a smart fox who use tablets, who use smart devices, right? It's a million years ago journey. But if we flip this side, or if we flip this picture as a evolution of a consumer, how we evolve as a consumer. So we are not going back to a million years ago, definitely. But if we think about, in 90s, we have small kiryanas, general stores, some shops, even 30 cities today also. And then in 21st century, these marts came up. When you jump to D marts or big bazaars, so you have a display over there where you have a lot of brands, a lot of variety to evaluate, to analyze, and that's entirely depend on the presentation of that product in that offline store. But when it comes to in 2011 and 10, and all these e-commerce champs came in market, Amazon, Flipkarts, others, then things are changed, right? You not need to go off. Am I audible? Okay. So things are changed. There is no such offline stores visiting so far. Everything on your mobile phone, everything on your desktop, laptops, because you are connected on internet. And with that, you can find that lot of brands in a single place. If you go any e-commerce platform, so you have a evaluate on different brands. Like if you want to buy a shoe, so you might have Adidas, you might have Reebok over there, and so others as well. And then though that's one of the evolution, and how it came, it depends entirely on consumer behavior. Then consumer behavior is changed because these social media channels, these Facebooks, Twitters, Instas, these kind of gems came in. And we people more spend our times on these social networking sites. So anyhow, these industry has to evolve themselves. They need to change their strategy. So how they change, they evolve in, and in using more analytics tools, try to get the data, analyze those data, those big datas, and provide right ads, which is a personalized ad for a user. So if Vikrant Tyagi is interesting in some product, and if I browse on my browser and I watch some YouTube videos, so I can see on the right side it show me my interested banner, the product which I just left on Amazon or on Flipkart. So that's how it's evolved. And more part here is that these champs are not only selling a product, they try to engage customer, they try to engage consumer, and the engagement is must for any survival, for any business survival. The more you engage, you more survive in the so-called, in this race, in this digital race, what we can say. So if you can see today, you guys receive multiple. If you subscribe, definitely you will receive multiple emails. You receive multiple messages, lot of information on our device, on our mobiles every day, right? So that we called as a evolution, and not only human being, evolution as a consumer. And that's where these all, when we evolve as a consumer, then these smart tablets, smartphones came in picture. Things are moving from on-prem data centers to clouds, and more people are more interested to writing code, writing more instrumented applications, more focused application, which is futuristic, instead of handling hardware resources, all these infrastructures. So that is what I called as a evolution, but evolution as a consumer. Then coming to the next part, so okay, we evolved as a consumer, but see on the other side that industry also having some revolution. Industry face some revolutions, and we usually find this. So I found these animated GIF images, and it's pretty. I look fine, So I put these in 4 quadrant, and what I'm explaining here is like how industry revolution happened from 1.0 to 4.0. So the first quadrant, you find that there's mechanical engineering going on, and that's late 18th century, right? In 18th century, we have more mechanical things, more steam related stuffs. Then in 2.0, late 19th century, when we entered in the electricity age, what we got, we find that all these automobile industry has the assembly lines at that specific era. And from 90s to 1975, moreover in late 90s, lot of works have been done on automation. Lot of works have been done to improve productivity, improve supply chains, or all those stuff. So automation evolution happened merely on 90s, 75, and that's what we call 3.0 version of industry, where you can find there is a guy who have a robotic arms, and he operate robotic arm. But if you can see, he operate robotic arm from his office premises. Okay, and if you can see, he operate his robotic arm from office premises, but he need a device, he need everything. Then this 4.0 evolution happened of industry. The revolution bring all the IoT objects, and if you can see, this have a smartphone, have a tablet, and he just operate anywhere. He just operate from his home, he just operate from his car, he just operate from any place, because there is no more network reliability, the network connectivity, what we call as a fiber connectivity or something. Everything is in cloud. So that evolution happened, and soon we will be witnessing of 5.0, where you will find that on next chair a robot will working with you. That might be next 10 years, you can see, or next 20 years. So that is what we have. Industrial revolution is nut and shell, and in nutshell I could say it's a 4 quadrant story. Begin from quadrant 1 to 1.0, and we are the people who born in 90s, 80s, seeing this 4.0 majorly things. These days IoT is on boom, things are moving on Internet of Things.
Basu, sorry to interrupt you. Actually, I think you need to change your layout. In between, somebody tried to present, so that's why like only you are visible. Your presentation is not. So just you just pin your presentation.
I did build my presentation.
I guess your screen is visible to us, not your presentation. I think from your end you
No,
need,
we can pin the presentation,
because
then it
somebody
will
in between try to present. That's why it happened.
Is my screen, my PPT visible? Can someone confirm on chat?
No, you are
No,
visible.
Okay. Shall I go spotlight?
Yeah, you try once.
I don't think that works. It's entirely depend
No,
on voice.
just change layout. Go to the change layout.
Yeah. Sidebar.
Sidebar.
I was there. Then presentation. I pin presentation. Chetan Verma just confirm it is visible.
You just go out of the presentation and again present. I think that will work.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
that it is visible actually. You have to pin the presentation.
No, let me just do one thing. I'll reshare again.
Yeah, reshare will work. Yes, fine.
Now better.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we can begin. If I'm audible, loud and clear. Pardon me, and this is what we have technical challenges. We have to survive with them. We need to make friendship with them, I would say. Okay, so we left we left on last slide, industrial revolution, and then we have uh, talk about, so next slide would be on cloud computing and history. So I'm jumping before jumping to the content over here is because instead of that I would share some information about the right side, the diagram we have. So everyone, maybe not everyone, but many of us having hardware resources in our home. Everyone might have a desktop or laptop. Just imagine that if you want to buy a desktop, what all, and you are working for a company for some editing work, right? So you need to buy a desktop. That's obviously needed. That's a resource. Then you need to make sure ki if you are working as a as an editor on a Photoshop, you need to make sure what configuration you need and all those stuff. Then post that you need to buy a license of a Photoshop software, or some editing software. So that also one thing is required. So you need to pay them and get them as a product. So you have to pay first and then you get the product. But what if everything is available on a model where you just pay, consume, and just leave it? It's like a rental scenario. So you rent out a specific purpose for a specific time frame, just consume the resource and then leave it for someone else can consume the same resource. That's where the cloud computing model came. And when it came with different layers. So different layer would say that infrastructures where they provide rental infrastructures, where they provide you compute resources, specific purpose, high-end servers to low-end servers. Then they provide you platforms. So if you are owning a business, you want to host some website, some PHP website. So you want a PHP as a runtime engine. So you can opt a platform for runtime that PHP application, or there might be some database. So you need to have a database server over there. Then application front, they provide application solutions. So for example, we all have Google login, we all have Gmail accounts. So that's the best example. Google calendars, Google drives. So we have a applications services, and all thing is there in place. What I just need a laptop, a login from that laptop. If we take an example of Google, what we just need to log in with our Gmail ID, and that's it. And then eventually you will get all the product of Google, including YouTube, Google Meet, Google Docs, Google emails, and other stuffs as well, right? So that's what cloud computing came in picture. And when it came in picture, that they provide a different layers, as I said, application, platform, infrastructure. But the model, all these cloud vendors, what they follow pay as you go. It means you don't want to upfront pay. You don't want to pay as a capital expenditure. So there are two terms majorly coined in these world, right? One is capex, another is opex. So capex is capital expenditure, and opex is your operational expenditure, which you run on daily basis or hourly basis. So all these cloud vendors, cloud provider going on a revenue model on operational expenditure. So consumer is paying for rental fee for so much specific hours, and then consumer doesn't need to bother about infrastructure, because if you want to settle down a server or a rack, so you need to a specific location, some area, some physical location, and you need to maintain a temperature of that area, because a proper AC equipments, proper networking should be in place. It should be properly restricted. It's a restricted area, so those things you need to maintain. So if you opt cloud solution, then you're not no longer worry about these things. So that's what cloud computing, more services, applications, platforms in cloud, and consumer is just need to log in from their devices, whether it's phone or the laptop. The history of cloud computing is not very latest. It is not in 21st century. It is from 1960, and I read on Wikipedia that it was a concept of time sharing when it start, which is very very popular, where the productivity eventually increase. Then in late 1990s, these telecommunication companies opted this and providing solution of virtual private network. So like if I give my example, so we are all working from home, but when we log in from our office VPN. So we eventually consuming bandwidth of our office internet, not directly our bandwidths. Then in 2000, into 21st century, these cloud vendors came in picture, and they start selling product in this market. So Amazon start their first compute EC2 as a EC2 service, where they provide EC2 servers, and S3 as well as a storage. In 2008, Google launched their Google App Engine. So Google App Engine more like infrastructure as a service, and it is more developer friendly. So they provide more development oriented things, so you can develop some application and you can host those applications. Then in 2010, Microsoft released Azure, their Microsoft Azure cloud. So that's the slide about cloud computing and history. More thing is in cloud, and consumer is not need. If you owning a let's say if you owning a website of e-commerce, so you don't need to worry about maintaining hardware resources. What you just need to do, you just need to focus on your business. That is your bread and butter, right? If I would say, if there is a sweet maker, a halwai, and if I will provide him solution, I would say, look, I will give you this IT solution, that IT solution. So he said कि भाई मैं हलवाई हूँ, मैं IT कहाँ manage करने जाऊँगा, मुझे ऐसा solution दो where I can focused on my domain. I don't want to go in this kind of stuffs. So there these kind of solutions came in picture, where just opt as per your requirement. Okay, so we talk about cloud computing, and when we talk about cloud computing in cloud solutions, so there is a models, there is a service models, how this cloud computing works. What all technical terms, or you could say antonymy, they are using for their models, their services. So it's cloud computing more advocate everything as a service, called service oriented architecture. So when I talk about everything as a service, so just imagine that in earlier days, I would say from today what happened in market. So earlier days, there are a lot of monolithic applications developed. And what is monolithic application? So it's a combined package of all the application together. But the disadvantage of that application is if you want to roll out one feature, you have to roll out entire application. And that rollout of that application would take months. Sometimes it takes 6 months to roll out a small features. That's the main disadvantage of that monolithic application, because it is stand on one as a oneness together. Then companies shift, and what they start doing is, when these, along with these cloud vendor solutions, they write microservices. And when they say microservices, so I would say that if I would launch some product as a startup, and I found that, okay, I will start these 5 features. So all these 5 features would be 5 microservices. And just imagine these 5 microservices would be depend on any other specific resource, right? So microservices give me flexibility of easy rollout. So earlier, if I am rolling out my feature in 6 months or a month, then I will roll out my feature in 24 hours with proper automation in place. So, but it will go along with everything as a service solution. So if service A as an application, front-end application, it might need a PaaS, okay, platform as a service, because it might be a web application PHP based, so it can opt platform as a service. And same product has a service B, which doesn't require platform as a service. It just want a small function, so you can opt software as a service. So that's how you can have a flexibility when you write some application or some product along with these cloud vendor solutions. So if on the right side, if you can see this slide, so we can take an example of this Google Meet only quickly. So cloud client. So what is cloud client? So we all logged in. I logged in. What I need a web browser. Many of you log in from mobile app. So that's a client side solution. That's a client side product. How we logged in? We logged in with our Google account. Okay. Now, when we logged in our Google account, we have this Google Meet. So that Google Meet come under software as a service. Because for if I don't have this Google Meet and I want to share my information with you, then I need to think about that how should I write a code for a streaming app where I can share my screen, I can stream content. But software solution is there, software as a service Google Meet, so I don't need to bother about it. Then once software as a service is there, and if we go deep dive, now this Google Meet is running on some engine, right? This Google Meet might be a program on Java or Golang or Python or whatever programming language it would be. But it need a layer to execute, right? It need a runtime engine. So there this platform as a service came where you will get runtime engine. So that is there. Then again, last layer, which is the main one, infrastructure. So we all logged in on infrastructure, on this Google Meet. And this Google Meet in last running on some servers. Google has data centers. Maybe possible that there are parallel some other Google Meets happening on some other cluster. So those are virtual machines. Those are virtual servers and storage areas where this thing happening, right? So this is one of the best example which I found, that you can correlate from top to bottom, from cloud clients to infrastructure as a service. So that's what we called as a service model: SaaS, PaaS, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, platform as a service. And infrastructure service, it's a foundation. Then you can say that it's start from bottom to top. Infrastructure as a service is your foundation, then platform as a service, and then software as a service. Okay, guys, you might have some questions, so please drop your questions in chat. I would try to cover as much as possible. Okay, so next about cloud model. So we talk about service model, what a service model is. And now we talk about the cloud models. So both our slides are same, There we talk about more theory. Here we can understood with an example. So I found this is pizza as a service is the best example to which where we can correlate easily with all these service models and cloud models. So many of us, maybe not many, majorly this audience love pizza, right? And when we order pizza, so generally Domino's is the champ, is the vendor who has a variety of pizzas, right? So there is an example, you can say pizza as a service, and in that example you find two colors, blue and green. So blue is you, green is Domino's, okay? And there are four categories, four options for you to have pizza. One is made at home. So in this pandemic and this COVID, I found one thing very uh, good, that we all watching some YouTube videos, and someone follow Ranveer Brad, someone follow some other chef. I follow Ranveer Brad, and we usually cook on weekends. And somewhere we find out, okay, it's better to cook at home, and so that's what we said is, but that's possible in cooking stuff, right? But when you work on weekdays, that's not possible, so you have to rely on outside vendors, right? So made at home, what is made at home option? That is you manage everything. And what pizza required? Pizza need cheese, pizza need toppings, pizza need tomato sauce, right? Pizza need dough, pizza base, and then after that you need to oven to cook that pizza, and then finally you need a dining table to have that pizza with your family and friends. But that is something which you own, you have to prepare, you have to cook everything, you have to bake pizza dough by your own, you have to make tomato sauce and everything, right? But there is another option where you can find take and bake. So what you can do, you can go a provision store, you can buy a pizza base, you can buy a tomato sauce and all those stuff, take them home, and make and you have oven, you have dining table, so you have the infrastructure to cook that pizza. But raw material you get outside from shop, right? So that's what we call as an infrastructure as a service, because in making pizza you have this infrastructure, you have oven, you have LPG gas, you have dining table to eat, you have soda or soft drinks, right? So I think someone is on mute, so would be great if everyone is please mute. Okay. Okay, so dining, so that is our take and bake scenario where we take raw material from outside and bake our own. Okay, and other option where we have pizza delivered. So there these Swiggy, Zomato, these online food delivery apps came in picture, where you said, look, I have dining table, I have soda, but I don't want to buy anything or cook anything from my own. Let's order it. And we generally do that in weekdays, and whenever there's a lot of friends in family get together. So that's what we call platform as a service. So you can say this two thing as a platform, soda and the dining table. Rest of the thing is coming under online delivery guys. You order something, and in next 30 minutes, 45 minutes, they ring your bell and you get your pizza. Happy party time. So that is one thing where you still at home, you order from outside, right? Because you have on-prem infra. But on the other side, we plan weekends to go out, some lunch, some dinner, or let's have some party outside. So you opted a solution called dine out. So I think there is noise. Okay, so then you opted a solution called dine out, where we have software we relate with software as a service, where everything provided by vendor. And if I plan pizza party outside, so I thought, let's go out, book some place, some restaurant, and then we have a party time. We have a nice 1 hour or 2 hours party, and we ate it and we come back. It's an option on weekends, right? So that's how we can relate. Now, last option, you see, everything is vendors, belong to vendors. So that's what we call software as a service. I just a consumer. And what I consume pizza. I consume his resources. I consume his dining table. I consume his soda and soft drinks, what he served. So those things I just consume as a consumer, but things already there. So that's what we consider under software as a service, right? So what we seen four categories: on-prem, related to made at home. So you can made your pizza at home. That's entirely related to on-premises. Everything is with you. Take and bake, where half thing is with them. You can say 50-50. That 50%, raw material you buy from outside, and rest of the thing, baking and everything, you did your own. So in infrastructure as a service, the foundation infrastructure hardware is with the vendor, and on top of that, from operating system to application layer, everything is with you. Similarly, third platform as a service, where pizza delivered from a delivery app, where you have this the infrastructure, dining table and soda, and rest of the thing you opted from outside. And last is everything as a service. So if I go to next slide, so the same slide, but here we have a big picture of cloud models. So now you can correlate. I mean, if I explain betterly and if you got it, so you can correlate up, automatically. So if you can see, the first pillar is blue, that is entirely on premises. So in on premises, you have to take care networking, you have to take care storage, you have to take care servers. If you have a shared rack, then you probably talk about virtualization of that hardware. Then on top of that, you need to install operating system. You need to maintain update of those operating system time to time. Proper patching should be there. Then you need some middle layer, because in terms of firewall security, you need to define certain rules for traffic in, traffic out. Then you need some runtime engine, because now on top of that, you run some application. Let's say if it's a PHP application or Java application, you need a Java runtime, or a PHP for running that application. And then data. So if it's an e-commerce website or any website, you might have SQL or NoSQL database. So those things you need to take care. On the other side, you can just take care till virtualization. I would say hardware, everything managed by vendor, and top of that, everything is yours. And you have to take care your from operating system to application, even patching update of OS and everything. Then in platform service, bar is increased till runtime engine provided by vendor. And the best example here is the GoDaddy. What GoDaddy these days, they provide domain, they also provide you runtime web hosting solutions as well. The DigitalOcean is also providing you runtime solutions. If you have a PHP application, just stop that solution and execute your PHP application or website. That's come under platform as a service. Then last is software as a service, where we can have example of Google Docs or Gmail as a email service. So that's what we have as a cloud models, correlate with all the service models, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. Okay, so that's what the context about cloud computing, history, cloud models, service models. Now we will majorly talk about Amazon Web Services. And I would say that you can maybe have a bookmark of this link, awsgeek.com/AWS history. They nicely present a dashboard of all the AWS services, and it's keep up to date. So you have a track of all the application, which application released in which year. There are thousands of applications, right? Okay, so first slide about the timeline or the history of Amazon. So this is the official timeline where they have two things. One is company milestones and the product launch. We just focused on product launch, where the black context, the text, and we start from 2006. So as I said, in 2006 they launch this EC2 as a compute, and then they launch S3 bucket. Then later they launch in 2011 App Store, like we have Google Play Store, similarly Amazon App Store. And then in 2030, Amazon launches in India. And when they launch AWS data center, the first data center was in Mumbai, in Asia Pacific region, AP South 1. And then its story is going on. So Prime here, many of you have maybe account on Prime, and if you can see Prime account, the Prime account is you can get online videos, right? It's a OTT model, but how they relate with their e-commerce model. So if you have a Prime account, so you are the Prime customer for them, and when you buy anything from Amazon e-commerce website, so you have a feature, you have flexibility to opt Prime delivery. If you are a Prime owner, you have a Prime account on Amazon Prime. So that's how they correlate one business to another. So that's a history of Amazon. Wouldn't too much over here. Okay, so AWS global presence. So as I said, AWS is a cloud vendor, Amazon Web Services, and they start their journey, first product with EC2, and then journeys keep going on, and then they start ramping up in multiple regions of this planet. This beautiful planet, we have multiple continents, and how they make these regions, so they cluster it. So if you can see on US continent, they have two east coast, west coast, and these are blue dots are regions for them. They have maximum regions in US. So region and what is availability zone, I will be explaining in next slide. Let's stick to, there are 24 regions, 76 AGs, and 205 plus edge locations. So what is edge location? So one example is Netflix or Hotstar. So their data center, they both are on AWS. Okay, by the way, Netflix and Hotstar also, but their data center is in US East, right? But how they delivered content to us, we are in India, right? Without that much latency. So these edge locations came in picture. So edge location is nearby location for your region. So for us, our nearby edge location would be Singapore or Europe. So that would be our nearby edge location, which the content is streaming from there. But server is lying in US East, right? And edge locations keep updated backend algorithms from the servers. So with that, you cannot directly jump to their servers. You just jump to the edge locations to get the content. So that's about regions, and there down there is a link for infrastructure, global infrastructure region AG. Okay, so nothing too much on there. So in nutshell, this is a cloud tag for AWS cloud services. It's a tag cloud, 5,000 plus services they have, and in all categories. I would say that AWS majorly having services in infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. They do have few services in software as a service, but they are leaders in foundation, because they build a foundation from many years. So infrastructure as a service and platform as a service is bread and butter for them. And no one, I deliberately tell, no one touches that thing. Coming to next slide. So this is AWS services. So there are more, but I do have only few to present here because I would like to showcase that how they categorize it based on requirement. So you can see the from top to bottom, from bottom to top. So first we have foundation services. In foundation services, we called infrastructure as a service, right? So infrastructure as a service, they category compute, they category storage. In compute, they provide EC2 or you all have account on AWS University, so you are familiar with EC2. Lambda functions are serverless architecture where you have code and you just it just triggered and execute that function and then sleep. Then storage content would be Amazon S3 bucket and cloud content delivery, CDN, Glacier for cold storage. That is just dumping raw data as an object storage. It's not a database, it's just an object storage. There is a difference between database and object storage. Object S3 is just using for dumping data. You cannot use as a file system. You cannot execute program using Amazon S3 bucket as a backend storage area. It's just dumping for data. Then database, there is solution Amazon RDS, DynamoDB is NoSQL database, right? And then in networking side, they have this Route 53. That's more about the DNS entries and all those stuff. You can opt your DNS on Route 53, or if you opt from some other party like GoDaddy, you can register, you can manage your DNS on Route 53 also. Then VPC is entirely a network where you define your isolated network within that region. Then we have application services where we have more in platform. We can relate with platform as a service, where the categories on administration and security, deployment and management, and analytics. So in administration security, I don't go one by one. So I just take one, that AWS Trust Advisor, how it helps. So Trust Advisor helping for cost optimization, because in cloud, we may deliberately use cloud services, right? But sometimes we not optimized our resources, and that heavily impact on my wallet, because I have to pay rent, right? And then Trust Advisor came in picture. It will give you weekly reports, or you can eventually check daily how much resources you optimized. And it also provides you solution that if you don't use this resource, it's underutilized, why don't you stop? Why don't you terminate this EC2 instance? So with that, you can control on your operational expenditure. And these days, operational expenditure is a big thing for every industry, because everyone is want to go in cloud, but at the same time, they are just making, doing mathematics, how we can have optimized infrastructure and more automated infrastructure. Okay. And coming to deployment and management, so they have this pipeline tools. CloudFormation is basically used for infrastructure as a code, where you can spawn your infra. You just have a template file. You don't need to log into console, create EC2, assigning security group, or selecting subnet. What you can do, you just write a snippet of code, upload that template, and your infra is ready. So that's the CloudFormation. And ops work, AWS Core Deploy is basically used for pipeline. So if you remember, I would say microservice architecture. So what microservices expectation is that it should be launched in production as soon as possible. Then these Core Deploy, ops works, these pipeline tools will help, where you have a continuous deployment of your product. The moment the developer needs some check-in, it go automatically in pipe for code quality, for all the scanning, because you use some code vulnerability, so that scan happen automatically, and it eventually promote to stages. It eventually promote till production. So that's what these ops work and Core Deploy will help. Then you have analytics tool, Kinesis, and data pipeline for all these big data related things. Then first layer is deployment and management. That is more about software as a service, which you can consume as SQS, SES for emailing solution, and mobile services. You have this SNS, mobile analytics, all those stuff. So that's a nutshell of Amazon Web Service. There are more, but you can relate that what are coming as a foundation infrastructure, and then they categorize it. Okay. Okay, so next come to the region and availability zone. So, in global presence, you have seen this our planet Earth having multiple continents, right? But if you can see on US side, they have multiple region in one continent. So you can imagine that how they work. So they first decide a location, then team will work. They find the physical availability of that location and how much wide it is, how much audience they can cater, because they need to line all these fibers and everything, right? So जितना बड़ा fiber होगा, the more fiber length you have, it would eventually impact on latency. It would eventually impact on your stream, the content delivery between both the data centers. So what they might have, I am not sure what they define in terms of SLAs, but what they thought about it, it should be one specific location, which can be called as a region, and you can have multiple region in one continent. But inside regions, you should have multiple data centers, and that multiple data centers called availability zones. So region is nothing. Region is a specific geographic location. Let's say India. India for them is a AP South 1. Okay. And in AP South 1 region, they opt Mumbai is one of the prime location. Now Mumbai, they have data center AWS, but in Mumbai again, when you launch any EC2, you can have multiple availability zone, 1A, 1B. So those are two different data centers inside one region. And how it isolated. So if you can see this diagram on right side, so in a region, you can create a VPC, that virtual private cloud network, which is your isolated network. So by default, when you log in AWS, default VPC is there, but you can create your custom VPCs. You can define your own CIDR range. You can define, by default, it come under 172.0.0.0/16. Somewhere, I think 256 IPs you will get. And then there are default subnets, but you can create your own. You can create, so in a region, you can create around 5 VPCs at a time. That's a limit. Maybe you can increase that limit, take a support ticket with AWS, but by default you can create 5 VPCs, and you can create those as isolated boundaries. Then further in VPC, you can create isolated boundaries for different availability zones. So you can decide, okay, in this region, I have 2 availability zone, so I can divide 256 IPs between both of them. Or maybe you can create multiple layers. So it depends on application architecture. So let's say if your application architecture required a private subnet, I mean, not internet facing. So you probably have multiple subnet with small IPs definitions. So you can divide multiple subnet definitions. So that's what regions and AG. Region is a geographic location. To be summarized this, it's a geographic location. Region, inside region, you create VPC as a logical boundary. Then inside that further you can create availability zones as a subnet. So then further you isolate on data center specific. Okay, and these data centers connected each other with high fiber optic cables. That's where these distance came in picture. So let's say if in Mumbai they have 2 data centers, though they might be in distance of 50 or some kilometer. What is their agreement? Why? Because there might be some uncertainty happen, something happen in building, some fire, some natural disaster or something at one location. So at least, so what Amazon provide when you launch any application, you might be in multiple AG for high availability. So if one thing happen on one data center, so at least you can survive, you can live with your business, with your application in another AG. Otherwise, everything will go on if you are on single AG. It depends. If you have a stateless application, no data, you can survive in a single AG because there is no data. It's just a stateless application, and you can have database in multiple AGs. So that's a one thing between regions and AGs. You might have definitely few questions on AGs, so please feel free to put your questions in chat. We can cover later. Okay, quickly I'm wrapping up this slide because this slide is just, it's meant for us in one way, I feel, but this slide is main for Amazon and these cloud leaders. So this is a Gartner report, and Gartner is a consulting firm and they are evaluating actually all these champs who are in clouds, that who is leading the market based on multiple research, multiple analytics of data. And when it comes to reliability, because for a consumer, what should I need? I can pay rupee more, but I want reliability. I can pay you 2 rupees, but give me reliability, no if and but. So that's what we people follow Gartner report. Let's say Gartner report said Amazon Web Services leader, right? They have these 4 quadrant. Niche player is Alibaba, Oracle, IBM, but the leaders quadrant, web services in top, Amazon, Microsoft in middle, and then Google. So as a consumer, for me, reliability is matter. So I opted obviously leader who is on top. So Amazon Web Services. That's again depend if I want to go more on foundation application, then Amazon Web Service has a variety. And for them, it's a selling point, right? So you can think this report matter for both, matter for consumer as well, and matter for the vendor as well. So there is nothing about this slide, just update. Okay, so we talk about beginning about computing to service models to cloud models. We seen the AWS history, we seeing the AWS services. Let's say now, just imagine. I'm not recommended just go for AWS, but let's imagine that you as a consumer, and now you're ready to go with AWS. Then what is the first question came in mind? Because everything is in cloud, right? Maybe not everything is in cloud, half thing is in cloud if you opt infrastructure as a service. So what kind of architectures I should frame? So AWS, the best part of Amazon is they provide a good documentation and they keep updating. So customer can read and frame their architecture, automate their architecture, update their architectures based on that. So documentation is very powerful, one thing. There they provide this well-framed architecture definition where we cannot say that it's only specific to AWS. It can apply for any cloud vendor. If the moment you decide to jump in cloud, you have to follow these 5 pillars. The 5 pillars are operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost optimization. Last is cost optimization, which matters, as I said. Now, operational excellence coming as a pillar where, let's say today you start a startup and you launch some website and you evaluate that, okay, maybe I'll get only 10 users for this 6 months, but you need to be ready for 10,000 users post 6 months, right? So you need to frame your architecture which is scalable, which is flexible enough. If same thing is on-prem data center, you might start with a small server, and then if it's scale and you eventually jump to market, you need to buy more box, you need to keep adding those box, right? And then again, space is matters where you place those servers, right? But in cloud, you can frame your architecture which is scalable, which is flexible, and you can scale anytime. Just thought about as a vast visionary that after 6 months I would have 10,000 users, so I should scale my server with that capacity, right? So that is operational excellence. And when we talk about scaling, we need proper things in place. All the monitoring tools and everything would be in place. So if anything goes on toes, so I should able to debug if it's an application problem, because application and the operating system is still with me. I just opt infrastructure of AWS. So that obviously their SLA, which they provide 99.59s, and it's powerful, right? But other thing is with me, so I need proper monitoring tools. Everything should be monitored. So that's what operational excellence architect frame. Then second pillar, security. Now, if everything is in cloud, obviously cloud vendor have their own security algorithm. They have their own data thing secures, right? But application side, I want to be secure, and then I can define what kind of traffic should be in, what kind of traffic should be out. It depends on security groups, what kind of traffic you want to allow inside your web application. Then third is reliability, as I said, because that's completely, depends and it's consumer first requirement that reliable resource is must. So when the moment your 10,000 customer land on your website, the vendor which you opt services, it should be reliable enough, right? Or even your application should be more reliable to consume, execute on those servers. Then performance efficiency. This is again a fourth pillar where you consider, so I start with 10 users and I just increase one user, that is 11th user. And immediately that 11th user seeing some performance issue, latency on website, content is not proper loading, and even the 10 users also face same issue. So performance efficiencies matter. So there, these things came in picture, that what type of EC2 compute or how much resource optimized you can use. I mean, if you define some EC2 compute, so what type of family it is, how much RAM you should define, how much core CPU. So that thing is directly impact on your performance efficiency and what kind of traffic is coming in, going out. Fifth is the last but not the least, it's a cost optimization. As I said, that cost optimization is big discussion. Everyone, whoever going today market also, and it would be in future as well, because it's up to your architecture. If you frame optimized architecture within these 4 5 pillars, then you might save some dollars. You might save some, happy rupees or whatever currency you're paying. So that cost optimization is matter, and this cost optimization is not a one-time job. It could be a weekly basis. So for us, let's say we have, I do have a task like weekly we visit for our resources, at least on development environment, and we used to evaluate where underutilized resources gone, and we took actions. We evaluate spot instances, we implement spot instances, and we evaluate multiple AWS solutions for costing related. So that is something is ongoing thing, which coming under monitoring, or so you can optimize your cost with removing or terminating underutilized resources. So nutshell, these are the 5 pillars, and I would say when you guys learning on AWS, and if you have some project, let's say, so think these 5 pillars in picture, because industry want intellect who thought about it. Technical things you might have, you might be very good in implementing solutions, but intellectually how you can frame your architecture, where within these 5 pillars, that matters. And that's what exactly asking in interviews question as well, when it's specific to jobs, that they give you use case and then you need to provide solution. That's what it is. Okay, so jumping to this slide, so I would say that initial that we would be having one, so I will be driving one walkthrough on a solution which is more like architecture. So this is a connected vehicle solution. I'll, instead of that, let me just click. So this is not a demo, guys, but I would say that this is interesting because IoT these days is more discussed thing, right? So people are more discussing about IoT objects, and you probably have some projects in coming years in your university, right? So this is one of the solution which Amazon provide, and they call it connected vehicle solution. So you can correlate with your Uber, Ola system. And if you can see this architecture, if my screen is visible, just give me a second. Okay. Okay, so if you can see this architecture design, so what we can walk through here is we can see the design first, and then quickly I will give you a contrast what this services is and what they are doing here, right? This is not a demo. I'm not going to implement, and I'm not going to monitor any car in this call. So we can imagine that there is a car and you have a IoT sensor, in this car. You might have multiple IoT sensors, and then you have a gateway. So IoT sensors is not, they works on MTQQ protocol, but it's better to have a gateway on that specific vehicle where these sensors dumping their data, and that data is dumping to this managed service of AWS IoT Core. And this IoT core, it's a platform as a service, where they said that you can opt this service and rest of the thing we will integrate with other AWS services. So background, they integrated with different services, but they give you a platform, a ready to use platform where easily integrated computes and other specific services. So in this architecture, they integrate with Kinesis data. It's the message and queue. This message and queue dumping data in S3 bucket as a raw data, which is coming from this car. And then this data is going to analytics because there might be multiple sensors, one for accelerating related thing, one for maintenance, or maybe one for giving you data from engine. So there is a mixture of data, and this analytics analyze that data and pumping to stream Kinesis engine, which again trigger a Lambda function. Now this Lambda function is a serverless architecture, and if you see, there is not a single EC2 box in this architecture. Everywhere they use different Lambda function. Why? Because architectures, this application architecture would work on Lambda, because the sensors will keep sending data and they just trigger this. So they don't want to run their application 24/7. And if your application doesn't want to run 24/7, then why should I execute my EC2 compute and I have to pay for 24 hours? So that's a thought, that if my application is just running on per click, then why should I execute for 24 hours a compute and just pay for 24 hours for that EC2? Instead of that, go for serverless application, which just trigger, execute, and sleep. So here this Lambda function dumping data in DynamoDB, it's a NoSQL managed database, DynamoDB key value pair. And then again, this Lambda function trigger another Lambda function which send notification. So just take a scenario that you have a travel agency and you have a truck which is going on, and some driver raising bar more than 60 km/h, and it breach the rules which you define, that don't go 60 km/h. So immediately this will trigger based on logics what we have written in code, and then this will get notified to the owner as well, and probably depends if you configure for driver that you are raising a bar, your speed limit is going high. And for driver safety, so in Ola, if you see that whenever we book Ola Uber cars, so they ask you ratings, and based on your ratings, they suggest that driver for another one, that this driver is a good rating, other things. So this is a nutshell architecture where they define multiple categories. So they have a application for anomaly detection. They have application, let's say a service for trip data. They have a different application for driver safety score, and in diagnostic trouble codes. And then last, they have location based marketing. So this location based marketing is directly helping your marketing team. They will get data from here, and then they can start creating their ads according to that. They can find who's the customer and what is their interest, making those kind of engagement. I would say more engagement with the customers, and depend on the interest or the behavior of customer. So this is one of the solution, and so the best part here is if whenever you log in and you will get time in your project, I would recommend you just use this CloudFormation template and upload on your CloudFormation. It's very easy. Just create a stack, but before that you need to go through it, how it works and everything, and you can just have a view of how this application looks alike when it created in real AWS. Okay, so coming back to slide. So before jumping to end of this session, I would say I find this very interesting link, learning path for training and certification. And I would recommend that each one of you must browse this and have a bookmark of this link somewhere in your AWS session, and you can go through it, and you can find eventually that there are multiple role-based certificates and trainings available, They might not be free. You need to register, or I mean, I don't know, from education partner stuff, if you get some benefit out of that. Maybe later sir can suggest something for you. But I personally suggest for you guys who are very beginner, must go this cloud practitioner, and it won't be that much big course. Few hours course might be. You can schedule your calendar. With this course you will get more fundamental things clear. Those who has experience, good, but those who doesn't have that much experience or exposure with cloud, good to have this cloud practitioner. And this will definitely clear your fundamental things in AWS. Then there is developer category, DevOps engineer, and rest of the things. So there are multiple categories and role based. I won't take that much because we are running out of time almost. So with this, I am done from my side, and I think we are open for QA. So I'll go to chat. Do we have any question? Guys, I'm open for Q&A. If you have any questions, so please ping in chat. Okay, what are the advantages of auto scaling? So Lokesh asked me this question. So thanks Lokesh for asking this. And auto scaling is something which fit in this quadrant, you know. Okay, so I would say this frame, and let's say operational, and then when you have 10 users, tomorrow you will be having 10,000 users, right? So you need to think about scalability, and it should be automatically. It doesn't look like that tomorrow 10,000 user aa gaye and then you manually jaake C2 console bana rahe ho. So there, these auto scaling things is work, which eventually auto scale based on metrics. And what you can do, you can define metrics based on alarms. You can refer CloudWatch alarms. You can create custom metrics of CloudWatch alarms. When the alarm raised, so let's say CPU. So let just take a use case. So Flipkart, they have a festive season, and they said in Diwali 2 दिन का काफी rush रहेगा. Let's scale the infra. So how how the automatically auto scaling helps over there is, so they, let's say they put a raise on CPU or memory metrics, right? So it trigger an alarm. That alarm taken automatically action to add one more node. That depends. You can add 2, you can add 3 at a time, you can add 1. So that's where this auto scaling works. And in scaling, there are two scaling. One is vertical, one is horizontal. So when I say horizontal, so it is scale in this. So you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when I say vertical scaling, so you start T2 medium, and then you increase with M5.x large or M4.x large. So that is what vertical. Auto scaling group doesn't help in vertical scaling. It only help in horizontally scaling. And that's how your businesses automatically scale up your node for 3 days. And in weekends, you don't have that much business or that much users, so it automatically scale down. You have a good optimized solution. I hope I answered. Is there any easy way to use cloud services with IoT? So Shubham, I think the last architecture possible would answer your question. Yes, there is easy way. I would say in this, just give me a second. So, okay, so if you can see the other diagram, which is this. So there, I said about AWS IoT core, right? But if you can just zoom it for you. But if you can see this architecture diagram having green grass core. So what I said, there might be IoT sensors, right? Multiple IoT sensors that can be any company, and you can have any company. But gateways matter. Who is, and if what is good if you have a gateway, a green grass core which is integrated with AWS IoT. So now AWS is providing more end-to-end solutions. There are a lot of blogs, lot of document in IoT section. You must go through that, and I would recommend you must even go through this solution design diagram. This really helps you to understand more about IoT. What shall provide the video online on YouTube? I would have few YouTube channels already bookmarked. I will share later with you. So I would recommend one that you can subscribe, and वो कहते हैं ना, click करें, subscribe करें, bell icon पे click करें, so you get notification. So you should subscribe channel instead of bookmark channel. You should subscribe, and eventually you can get lot of emails in your email ID. AWS has its own channel. I usually get a lot of emails from AWS. There's some application for machine learning in AWS. Yes, there are application on machine learning. I'm not much familiar about that domain, so I couldn't get chance to explore, but I will definitely share with you, Lakshya, something. Okay.
So maybe Vikrant,
Yeah.
what we'll do, because we already overshooted some time, and our community member may have some other engagement in the day. So maybe we'll stop here, and if some more question comes, like we already have your, I'll request all the participants, you already have our email ID, outreach team email ID and WhatsApp number, you can post there so that we'll forward to our speaker, and
Sure.
he is more than happy to answer that.
Sure.
So with this, I would like to thank you formally again on behalf of our community, like coming up with such an insightful presentation, as well as you have shared your experience and wisdom with us. We are very grateful. We are trying our best so that we can connect to our community and deliver such kind of engagement to them. And we are very grateful to you, particularly you spare your time from your busy schedule. I hope the other day probably you might have enjoyed your late night and then early morning sleep, but for us you have compromised on that.
Yeah.
Because this is basically happens, like people from IT industry. So we are very grateful for this, and we look forward to host you in future so that our community can gain from such an interaction. And definitely we thank you again for your contribution. Maybe I request Anurag sir if he wants to say a few words.
Thank you, Vikrant, a lot. And I'm sure if there are follow-up questions, we would request you to conduct maybe online workshop or follow-up sessions. Thank you very much. It was
Correct,
really
sir.
wonderful to hear.
Thank you. I would just take few minutes to acknowledge, and I'm again said I'm thankful to connect with you guys, and I would really appreciate that you are very fortunate. You are under guidance of such a faculty members, and especially Anurag sir, because I have a experience in my past. So please consume resources as much as possible in labs. Spend more and more time in lab. जितना ज्यादा आप लैब में टाइम स्पेंड करोगे उतना कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा, अदरवाइज theoretical things wouldn't help. And I always be there. I happy to contribute my efforts, my time, because I am also a seeker. I always learn to new things, and it really good to learn with you champs, fresh mind people. So anytime, just drop me message on. You can connect me on LinkedIn. I was there. You can drop me email. I will try to reply ASAP. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Thank you all those who participated and spare your time for this course. And in future also we look forward to host you in such events. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.